Discover how this amazing grandma turned trauma into an incredible transformation of revenge. The morning sun poured into Edna's diner, spilling over her freshly baked pies like gold. Maplewood was buzzing, and as the familiar sense of cinnamon and vanilla enveloped the room, Edna felt the weight of her legacy pressing down harder than ever. Her diner had always been her sanctuary, a warm embrace for those seeking comfort and community. But the scathing review from the local food critic, a self-proclaimed arbiter of taste, shattered her peaceful existence. Uninspired and outdated, he had called her beloved diner as food, and the words echoed in her mind like a taunt. Every slice of pie, every bowl of beef stew, held memories of her children's laughter and the warmth of Sunday dinners. Now, they felt tainted, as if the very essence of her being was up for debate. Edna wiped her hands on her apron, the fabric damp with sweat and flour. She had always feared that someone might see her pain, the weight of her hard childhood, the betrayal of her first husband. What if they see me as weak? She whispered to herself, anxiety clawing at her chest. The thought of her community judging her, laughing behind closed doors, was unbearable. The critic didn't just insult the food, he insulted her, and it triggered something deep within her. A mix of determination and indignant fury surged, fanning the flames of her resolve. This wasn't a small-town spat. This was a fight for her family's honor, a fight against the sneers that whispered her food didn't belong to the modern world. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Edna began to dig through her grandmother's old recipes, recalling the way she stirred warmth and passion into each dish. Yet, with each spoonful of batter, frustration gnawed at her like an insatiable beast. The community she had nurtured for decades now felt alien. Friends turned distant, neighbors who once praised her signature meatloaf suddenly faltered. Chop by chop, she felt the hurt of betrayal unraveling the fabric of her tight-knit existence. Am I not good enough? How many nights had she spent perfecting recipes, pouring her heart into meals that wrapped around her children like a loving quilt? Each culinary creation was now shadowed by fear of judgment. The realization that someone close had fed the critic information felt like a dagger twisting in her chest. Who could do this to her? The thought of betrayal mingling with nostalgia gave her mind no rest, churning with clouds of conflict, revenge, forgiveness. Each idea weighed heavy with implications, and Edna felt the temperature of her emotions rising as the final showdown approached. She was on the brink of transformation but faced an unexpected question: was she willing to lose her humanity to grasp victory? That unanswered question teased her mind, leaving her with a desperate need to confront not just the critic but the whispers of her own broken past. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the diner's checkered floor. Edna stood at the counter, hands resting on the smooth wood, her mind reeling with a tempest of thoughts. Each moment magnified the pain of betrayal, but within it lurked a spark of determination she hadn't known she possessed. She could either crumble under the weight of her past or ascend and reinvent herself. The decision loomed like the thick curtain of rain clouds, dark and heavy but pregnant with the potential for renewal. As she gathered her grandmother's recipes, a glimmer of nostalgia fueled her resolve. Memories of her grandmother's laughter, cooking in the kitchen with reckless abandon, flooded her senses. Edna finally recognized that betrayal wasn't the end, it was merely an inflection point. She could channel the pain into power, transforming each bitter feeling into a beacon of creativity. The critic might have dismissed her food, but she had the potential to create something revolutionary, something that fused tradition with modern flair. Inspiration coursed through her as she contemplated reimagining her menu. Yet, uncertainty fluttered in the corners of her mind. The fear of failure wrestled against her newfound fervor. What if her changes didn't resonate with her longtime patrons? What if they saw her evolution as a desperate act of invalidation? The very thought of disappointment cracked open the vault of her insecurities. Edna took a deep breath, mentally tracing the lines of a new menu in her mind, a fusion of her grandmother's cherished comfort food with unexpected twists. Realizing change wouldn't happen overnight, Edna began to methodically brainstorm. She sought unorthodox ingredients and began sampling new flavors. Venturing to the local farmer's market, she discovered exotic spices and fresh produce that rejuvenated her enthusiasm. Conversations flowed with passionate vendors, each exchange adding fragments to her culinary canvas. "You must be bold," one vendor advised, a twinkle in her eye. "Don't shy away from showcasing who you are. That is what the world craves." Words that shivered through Edna's thoughts, igniting a flicker of hope that life beyond this moment was attainable. Back in the diner, she stood over the oven, piecing together new recipes as the scents wafted around her, intertwining with the memories of her childhood. The kitchen became her sanctuary, once again a place where she reinvented herself and reconnected with what truly mattered. She mixed old techniques with unexpected ingredients, fully engaging her palate in the process. Some concoctions would fail, she knew, but others would sing. Edna embraced the uncertainty like a long-lost friend, reminding herself that while the critic had cast shadows, he couldn't dim the light she had yet to discover within. This journey was not solely about victory against him, it was about reclaiming her narrative and immersing herself in the joy of cooking. But just as she began to imagine the possibilities of her revived diner, the dark cloud of betrayal still loomed overhead. Her resolve solidified with each passing day of preparation. The moment to confront the critic and the questions of loyalty from her past would come soon enough. It was only a matter of time before she gathered the courage to face him, but first, she had to solidify her identity anew, to show the community the fearless culinary artist she was destined to be. Blinded by this newfound purpose, she couldn't ignore the familiar knock on the door, a message from an old friend, someone from her past who might have details about betrayal that could shake her burgeoning confidence. The time had come to face the ghosts of her history. The knock echoed in the stillness of the diner, a reminder of past ties that could either tether or liberate her. Edna paused, her heart racing, as she felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her. Her friend Lily had been a fixture in her life during the more innocent days, but those very days were drenched in the shadows of betrayal and disillusionment. She opened the door, conflicted emotions swirling inside her. Lily stood with an apologetic smile, her eyes scanning the diner with a mixture of nostalgia and curiosity. "Edna!" she exclaimed, stepping inside and enveloping her in a hug. "It's been too long. I wanted to see how you've been holding up." Edna forced a smile, acknowledging Lily's warmth. "I'm getting there. Working on some new things." The words felt inadequate as they hung between them, each syllable laced with the tension of unspoken truths. As they settled at a booth, Edna found her gaze drifting toward the busy kitchen. The aroma of spices danced in the air, a seductive reminder of her renewed passion for cooking. The unfolding layers of flavor mirrored her own desire for rebirth. But alongside that desire was fear, and she could sense it bubbling beneath the surface of their conversation. "Everyone talks about the diner, you know," Lily continued, her voice dipped in enthusiasm. "They say you're changing things up. That sounds exciting." "Yes, it is," Edna replied, her confidence wavering slightly as she studied her friend's expression. "But there is a lot of history tied to this place." "To everything." Lily leaned closer, her brow knitting together. "You don't have to tell me, but I'm here if you need to talk. I only want to help." The tension in the air thickened as Edna's mind raced. Did she want to delve into memories, to unearth the festering wounds of betrayal? Or was now the time to focus solely on her future? A flicker of unresolved anger ignited within her at the thought. "What do you know about it?" Edna asked cautiously. Lily's expression shifted, concern flooding her features. "You mean about what happened with Jake? You don't know everything, do you? There is something you need to hear." Her words struck like lightning, eclipsing the happiness of their reunion. The specter of Jake, the critic whose harsh judgment had threatened her very foundation, loomed large in Edna's mind. She could feel old scars start to throb as memories of betrayal resurfaced. "What do you mean?" Edna's voice trembled, a quiver of vulnerability threading through her steel-like facade. Lily hesitated, weighing the gravity of her revelations. "I heard from someone close to him. There were decisions he made about you, Edna. Choices that, well, might not have just been his alone." Each word stabbed into Edna's resolve, challenging the walls she had built. The foundations of her evolving journey blurred momentarily, uncertainty clawing its way back in. "You're saying I'm not just a victim of his words?" "Not just his words," Lily confirmed softly, locking eyes with Edna. "But you can take this and own it. You can turn it into strength." As Edna absorbed that sentiment, she felt invigorated yet besieged. Was that the key to transcending her suffering? Embracing the chaos of her past? Forging ahead with absolute conviction? Lily's presence stood as a symbol of the path not taken, one filled with trust, joy, and companionship. This moment could either be a catalyst for her to expand into a greater version of herself or a distraction that nibbled away at her progress. "I need to think," Edna finally whispered, her heart racing with the heavy implications of choices yet to be made. She could feel the ceiling of her reality shifting, urging her to step outside the realm of mere survival. With each breath, she recognized the urgency to transform doubt into actionable insight, to summon the courage to confront the shadows that loomed. Edna knew she stood at a precipice. The ghosts of her history were ready to emerge in a confrontation, one that could redefine her. The next chapter awaited, fraught with the promise of truth, conflict, and the potential for a new narrative altogether. It was time. Time to uncover the secrets of betrayal for herself and for those who had yet to see her truth truly shine. Edna sat in the booth, the din of clinking dishes and soft conversations fading into the background as she wrestled with her tumultuous emotions. The insecurity that had been a constant companion was morphing into something sharper. It was no longer simply about her past but about the choices that lay ahead. She gazed at Lily, who seemed a mix of hope and concern, and felt a sudden wave of clarity. "Lily," Edna began, her voice steadier than she felt, "I realize I've been numbing myself to the truth. I've let fear dictate what I do with my life. It's easier to get lost in my kitchen than to confront what is really waiting out there." Lily nodded, her eyes encouraging. "It's okay to acknowledge that, Edna. But recognizing it is the first step. You have the ability to channel that fear and turn it into your strength." Edna allowed her gaze to drift to the busy kitchen again. It was alive, a flurry of action and purpose. The cooks worked in harmony, each movement deliberate. Inspiration sparked inside her. If only she could create that kind of energy in her life. "I want to build something new, something powerful that represents me, not the shadows of my past," Edna confessed, her conviction solidifying. That is exactly the mindset needed to move forward. Why don't you start channeling that into your cooking? Make it personal, add the flavors of your experiences, the memories that shaped you, Lily suggested. Edna's mind raced with possibilities. Each dish could tell a story, her story. The old recipes from her grandmother, the culinary influences from her childhood, meals shared with those she loved, and even the bitterness of betrayal could blend into something flavorful and rich. The idea of crafting a menu that encapsulated her journey was exhilarating, yet daunting. Building a new identity through food, it feels liberating. The phrase hung in the air between them, imbued with significance. Exactly. Let that be your medium of self-expression, Lily encouraged, leaning closer. Start by writing down what you want to convey. Identify your flavors, your tastes. What do you want your food to say about you? Edna took a deep breath, the weight shifting from her chest. The shadows of doubt slowly retreated, replaced by a flicker of eagerness. I could create a dish named after moments of joy and sorrow, each tasting a balance of the two. A representation of resilience in every bite. Yes. And have you thought about a launch event? You could invite the community, showcase how you've reinvented the diner, and introduce your new creations. The idea took root, swirling around in her mind. A launch event, Edna mused, excitement bubbling up like a rising soufflé. The thought of sharing her culinary journey with others felt empowering instead of intimidating. She envisioned the small diner filled with eclectic flavors, each dish an insight into her character, a reflection of her evolution. The fear that had lingered now transformed into anticipation, a perfect blend of risk and reward, much like cooking itself. But the looming specter of Jake's judgment still tainted her thoughts. How would he respond to her transformation? Would he dismiss the significance of her journey, or would he finally see her as more than just a reflection of his words? The apprehension clawed back into her psyche, coiling tightly, but she recognized it for what it was, another lingering shadow begging for confrontation. I want to do this, Lily, Edna said, determination sharpening her tone. I need to step out of the shadows, not just for myself but for everyone else who has been pushed to the sidelines. Then let us make it happen. This is your moment to reclaim your narrative. Edna, the time has come to face your past head on and redefine your future. The diner felt alive around her as the clamor of the kitchen turned into a rhythmic song, urging her forward. It was time to set the stage for her new beginning. The preparation for the launch event would serve as her vessel for self-discovery and growth. Edna resolved to confront her past, to harness it into something powerful. The urge to overcome was rising within her, and she realized that what awaited was not just a culinary transition but a transformation of her entire identity. And as she leaned back in her seat, a newfound resolve filling her, she understood she was ready to uncover the truths that would set her free. The true confrontation loomed large now, waiting just beyond the horizon, holding the promise of liberation and redemption. What secrets of betrayal would she uncover next, and how would they reshape her culinary destiny? Edna slipped into her routine the next day with renewed purpose, her mind a whirlwind of ideas ignited by the previous evening's conversation. Each trek through the diner felt different, the familiar surroundings now mirrored the landscape of her internal shift. She hopped from task to task, assembling grocery lists and sifting through old recipe cards her grandmother had scribbled on decades ago. Each card was a piece of legacy, a snapshot of simpler times that steered her thoughts towards flavors both sweet and bitter, love and loss entwined. This treasure trove of memories became her starting point, a canvas on which to splash her growth. In the back of her mind loomed Jake, his opinion like a distant storm cloud, dark yet removed from the present moment. Edna had long let his negativity drown her ambitions, now was the time to sail into uncharted waters. She caught herself questioning her capabilities. Could she really turn these feelings into food that was meaningful? Would others appreciate the intricacies beneath her dishes, or would they only see the surface? With each recipe that emerged, Edna wrestled with self-doubt. Should she really incorporate the pain of betrayal cooked with the warmth of love, or would that be too much? What if she shaped a plate that evoked memories she'd rather suppress? Could vulnerability really coexist alongside culinary delight? The tension within her twisted like raw dough, beautiful yet messy. As she prepared the ingredient lists, she jotted down her thoughts. A blend of spices that evoke remembrance, she wrote, allowing her pen to flow. Memories of a Sunday roast with her grandmother became a simmering sauce. The freshness of seasonal vegetables reminded her of picnic times with loved ones. Yet, the ominous taste of abandonment lingered in the back, turning sweeter when confronted. Edna found herself pausing at the thought of Jake and how he represented one side of her past, one that she no longer wanted to define her. What would make him see? She mused quietly, fingers tapping on the table with irritation as inspiration darted away from her grasp. Determined not to let his voice echo in her mind, she turned her focus inward, examining what she wanted her dishes to say. How could she craft a meal that exposed her journey without feeling naked to judgment? The thought turned sharp, and she realized that it wasn't just about creating an emotional connection with her cooking, it was about reclaiming her narrative from him. She ventured deeper into research, drawing upon diverse culinary influences, allowing eclectic styles to mix in a melting pot of her identity. The idea of introducing certain modern techniques felt thrilling, each twist of tradition washing over her like a fresh approach to a polished recipe. Late into her preparations, the realization crashed down: this was not merely about revenge, it was about resurrection. Cooking had the potential to breathe life into her story, transforming pain into a strategic palette of resilience. With each chop and simmer, a healing breath ignited her determination to honor her past without letting it suffocate her present. Yet, in the depths of her inspiration lay an unsettling question: could her own success provoke Jake's misguided anger? Would her triumph lead to confrontation rather than resolution? As she pushed through the kitchen door and onto the restaurant floor, her heart beat with a mix of excitement and trepidation, a reminder that liberation always carries a price. As she pieced together her new culinary vision, Edna understood this transformation was multidimensional. It involved refusing to accommodate someone else's perception, embracing the power to forge her own destiny while simultaneously reconciling with scars she wished to showcase. It was a daring balance to strike, a dance tethering past wounds to future aspirations. With her menu ideas brimming, Edna's resolve crystallized, a movement toward independence and an act of defiance against shadows that had held her captive for so long. But as excitement propelled her forward, the unsettling question remained looming: what would happen when Jake refused to stay in the past and stepped into her future, still intent on shaping the narrative she fought so hard to rewrite? Edna awoke the following morning with an unusual vigor pulsing through her veins. The sun filtered through the kitchen window, spotlighting the layout of her day. It felt like the world was waiting for her to act, and for the first time in months, she was ready to deliver. Rather than fixating on any external fear, particularly Jake, Edna decided to embrace this opportunity for enrichment. She arranged a plethora of notes and sketches across the kitchen counter, treating them like vital ingredients to a dish that was about to unfold. Each idea reflected an aspect of her identity, a kaleidoscope of her pain, her aspirations, and her history. She considered that each plate she envisioned would not merely speak of culinary excellence but echo the very essence of who she was emerging to become. As she began to sort through her grandmother's recipes again, Edna felt compelled to recreate not just the food, but the warmth and connection that came with it. What if I made a dish that feels like a hug? She contemplated, searching for ways to blend comfort with complexity. The thought ignited a fire within her, and each decision began to feel more liberating than limiting. A new idea sparked: she would host a private tasting session, inviting a small group of trusted friends to engage in her culinary experiment. This event would serve as a test kitchen for her ideas, a space to place her concepts under scrutiny while using their feedback as a springboard for growth. Yet, another thought loomed: could she craft an experience dazzling enough that it would lead her out of Jake's shadow? Hesitation crept in as she thought of how much his opinion had swayed her in the past. If they expect perfection, she thought, what will happen if I fall short? Yet the recognition of this fear only fortified her resolve. There would be no chasing perfection, it was authenticity she sought. With renewed enthusiasm, Edna reached into the bin of fresh produce, letting her senses guide her. Bright tomatoes, vibrant herbs, and earthy roots spoke volumes, each one capable of telling a story she was still learning to narrate. She began experimenting, creating a summery panzanella, ripe with heirloom tomatoes and crusty bread, drizzled with a balsamic reduction that danced like sweet revenge on the palate. Each taste led to a memory, from the laughter-filled summers in her grandmother's garden to quiet reflections on nights spent feeling unseen. It was a delicate balance to capture feelings yet respect the rawness of the experience. Edna understood then that her joy could coexist with her pain, she could bridge the gap where memory and hope collided. As the hours flew by, Edna found herself lost in the rhythm of her kitchen, cooking, bridging thoughts and emotions like never before. She felt herself growing, navigating through flavors as if they were the very essence of her journey. Here, in this space, she was both creator and commentator, crafting connections through the passion embedded in her food. However, the question of Jake refused to fade. What if he ambushed her tasting, lured by the charge of creative energy? Would he sabotage her progress, perhaps critique from an embittered vantage? Edna pressed her palms into the cool countertop, shaking her thoughts free. As dusk set in, she made her final preparations for the event, her thoughts both focused and wavering. The idea of confronting her past felt imminent, like an approaching storm. Would it be reckless to entertain such possibilities? She had a voice now, but could she fortify it against the noise of her past life? With determination buzzing around her, Edna set the date for the tasting. It was time for her to create, experiment, and share. But that still haunting thought lingered: would this experience of expansion allow Jake a foothold, or would it finally close the chapter irreversibly? As anticipation blended with trepidation, Edna prepared to face the challenge ahead. But deep down, a whisper urged her forward into uncharted territory. This time, I will be ready. In the days leading up to her tasting session, Edna plunged deeper into her culinary experimentation. Each dish she crafted unfolded like a therapy session, guided by the flavors of her past and the ambitions of her present. She scheduled time in the kitchen each day, allowing her creativity to flow unrestricted. There was a palpable shift in her energy, as if she was not just preparing food but disassembling the barriers that had hemmed her in for far too long. Yet, as the familiar sense of simmering garlic and fresh basil enveloped her, a flicker of doubt forced its way into her mind. Could her creations genuinely convey her journey? What if her food fell flat? Instead of surrendering to these thoughts, Edna chose to confront them head-on. She picked up her knife, slicing through an onion while conjuring memories of vivid conversations shared over meals gone by. She realized that the fear of inadequacy was just another ingredient to integrate into her process. She played with various combinations, infusing unexpected elements. With each new attempt, she discovered aspects of her skill set she hadn't acknowledged before: her willingness to improvise, her keen palate that detected the slightest imbalance of flavor. Every successful dish wove itself into the tapestry of her confidence. As she prepared an herb-infused pasta, she savored the thrill that blossomed within her. This was not merely food, it was the manifestation of her evolution. Edna meticulously compiled her menu, framing each dish with a narrative that intertwined her memories with the essence of her identity. The panzanella became a taste of summer for those lazy afternoons at her grandmother's table, while the ravioli bore the title embracing change, rich with delicately spiced butternut squash encased in handmade pasta. These moments of connection transformed her anxiety into a desire for sincere engagement with her friends. As she prepared to invite her select group of supporters, anxiety and excitement wove a complex tapestry within her. When she sent out the invitations, something shifted. She no longer felt the need for reassurance. Instead, she craved genuine feedback, insights on her journey through food. That night, in the quiet of her living room, she crafted the tasting cards that would accompany each dish, refining her ability to narrate her intentions through written words. But Jake's spectre lingered, haunting the corners of her psyche. She found herself rehearsing a possible confrontation, obsessing over scenarios where he would dismiss her efforts or undermine her newfound confidence. Each time she imagined him appearing uninvited, she took a deep breath, redirecting that anxious energy into her preparations. As the day of the tasting dawned, Edna awoke to a cacophony of butterflies in her stomach. Still, she refused to let them paralyze her. Armed with her knife, a flurry of inspiration coursing through her, she plunged into the final preparations. Be authentic, not perfect, she reminded herself repeatedly. The sun began its descent, casting golden hues around her kitchen, and Edna set to arrange the dining space, the flickering candles symbolizing warmth and hospitality. She wanted every detail to reflect the beauty of her journey. The mismatched dishes, each a story, echoed her own complexity. When the first guests arrived, laughter filled the air, and Edna felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Each friendly face elicited excitement, yet the moment of truth lingered like a weight hanging in the balance. Would they appreciate the nuances she had woven into each plate? As her guests settled in, the aroma of the opening dish wafted through the room, seductive and inviting. To Edna, each plate was a declaration, her heart beating in rhythm with the laughter that danced around her table. But just as she began to introduce her panzanella, a sudden chill swept through the room. The door creaked open, and there stood Jake, an inscrutable expression masking his intentions. Edna's heart raced. All her preparation, her journey, faced a critical juncture. "Why are you here?" she whispered, caught between excitement and dread. The moment hung heavy, a reckoning awaiting her. Would Edna find the strength to defend her new voice, or would she allow the past to overshadow her progress all over again? Edna's expression hardened, masking the tremor within her. She stood amidst the warmth of her carefully curated gathering, but suddenly, the atmosphere became charged with an unexpected tension. The flicker of candlelight cast shadows on Jake's face, illuminating an intensity she had thought faded from her life. "All I want is a chance to talk," he said, his tone a mix of resolve and uncertainty. She felt a wave of indecision wash over her. On one hand, his voice carried a gravity she once found comforting, but it now felt like a remnant of an era she was determined to leave behind. The laughter and conversation among her guests melded into an indistinct hum, but her focus remained unwaveringly fixed on him. Each inhale filled with complex emotions: anger, betrayal, but most importantly, a fierce determination to protect what she had worked so hard to build. "Not now, Jake. I'm busy," she replied, more firmly than intended. He stepped forward, thoughts racing through her mind, every moment of doubt, every seed of resentment unfurling at the edges of her consciousness. "What about all those times I supported you?" he pressed, his vulnerability stinging. "You're not going to let all of that go, are you?" She took a measured breath, grounding herself. The taste of her culinary creations lingered on her tongue, each dish representing a milestone in her transformation. She had spent countless hours navigating through her history, layering flavors with memories, ultimately creating something that was an extension of herself. The thought of allowing Jake, with all his complications, to interfere felt like an echo of old patterns she'd worked diligently to erase. "Those times were tied to who I was," Edna replied, now trying to hold the emotional stakes high. "I'm not that person anymore. I'm here to celebrate who I am becoming." She pivoted away, intending to rejoin her guests. But he called out again, "You can't just erase me from your life." The anger flared within her, igniting a surge of determination. How often had she slinked away from confrontation, backing down just to avoid discomfort? Not anymore. She turned slowly, her gaze piercing. "You're right, I can't erase you," she stated, her voice steady. "But I can choose not to let you dictate my journey. This is my moment." A ripple of silence fell over the room as the guests paused to observe. Her heart raced, but rather than feeling exposed, she grasped the power in the open space. She felt the warmth of her friends, their support swirling around her like an embrace. As Edna reached for the serving platter, the vibrant colors of her creation seemed to radiate confidence. "This is my table, my story," she declared, voice resolute. "And it's your choice whether you want to be a part of it." The truth in her words crystallized in her mind. She didn't have to craft an aggressive narrative. Instead, she could showcase her growth through positivity, embodying strength without sacrificing her peace. Jake took a tentative step back, his expression shifting from defiance to something resembling regret. Edna seized this moment, her heart now aligned with her purpose. "I want to celebrate my journey with those who understand, appreciate, and uplift." Here was the essence of her transformation. The culinary dishes represented her evolution, each bite telling a story of resilience, and for the first time, she felt unapologetically proud of every dish. "Let us focus on that instead," Edna said, loudly enough to snap her guests back into the moment. "This meal symbolizes every challenge I've faced, and I refuse to let any part of my past diminish my present." As she started to unveil the first course, a rush of adrenaline mixed with relief coursed through her. She could hear the soft murmurs of the guests whispering encouragement. Yet, in that very moment of triumph, as she carved into the first piece of panzanella, Jake lingered in her peripheral vision, an unresolved piece of her past still casting a shadow. The battle of defining her newfound identity continued, teetering with uncertainty. Will she truly sever ties, or will Jake's presence unravel the very fabric of her newly woven existence? The thought echoed in her mind, as the air thickened with the intricate taste of triumph dipped in the bitterness of unhealed wounds. The aroma of roasted tomatoes and fresh basil filled the room, mingling with the resounding echoes of Edna's declarations. As the first course was served, the initial unease began to dissolve, replaced by a buzz of enthusiasm among her guests. Yet, Jake remained a stubborn specter at the periphery of her thoughts, a reminder that her journey was not without its complexities. She watched her guests savor the vibrant colors of the panzanella, their expressions reflecting genuine delight. In their reactions lay the validation she had sought for so long. Was this what she had been missing all those years, this unfiltered joy, a connection created through shared experiences and tastes? The culinary world felt like a canvas where she could paint her emotions, crafting dishes that not only nourished but also told her story. "Delicious, Edna. Your flavors are incredible," Anna exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. The praise resonated deep within Edna, fostering a comforting warmth that temporarily dulled the echo of Jake's words. However, the nagging question remained: could she fully embrace this new chapter while he was still present in her life? As conversations flowed around her, Edna found herself oscillating between pride for her growth and the frustration of unresolved feelings. For the first time, she acknowledged the space Jake occupied within her thoughts, not as a burden but as a component of her past that demanded reckoning. With each subsequent course, she channeled her emotions into her cooking, consciously transforming the weight of her regrets into vibrant flavors. The roasted heirloom carrots glistened, representing her newfound brightness, while the herb-infused couscous mirrored the intricate layers she had woven into her identity. Each dish was a triumph over doubt, a celebration of resilience. While her guests dug into the eclectic meal, Edna exchanged glances with Jake, still rooted at the edge of the gathering. His gaze harbored an uncertainty she recognized all too well, an acknowledgement of the distance that had grown between them. The thought gnawed at her: did he truly understand the gravity of what she was building, or was he still tethered to the vestiges of their shared past? "Edna, this is a masterpiece," James commented, alluding to a dish she had spent hours perfecting. The affirmation stung with irony, as she realized that every compliment from her friends felt like a notch in a battle of self-acceptance against her history, not just with Jake, but with her insecurities. "Thank you," she responded, her voice barely masking the turbulence beneath her calm exterior. Each thank you was a declaration of independence, a choice to weave the past and present without allowing either to dominate her narrative. As dessert approached, a luscious chocolate torte with a zest of orange, Edna noticed Jake shifting on his feet, still looking uncertain. Perhaps he was ready to reconsider the role he had played, ready to acknowledge that his support did not excuse his past actions. The thought ruptured through her mind. A confrontation was inevitable, it lingered like the bittersweet aftertaste of dark chocolate. As she plated the final course, a sudden wave of defiance surged within her. Was she to let past relationships define her future? Could she extract clarity from the chaos he'd caused? "Jake," she finally called, her voice steady, silencing the ambient noise of appreciation. The attention of her guests shifted, curiosity evident in their expressions. "If there's something you want to say, now is your chance." The room held its breath, charged with the tension of untold stories. Edna found herself at a crossroads, the balance of her newly assembled self teetering. Would this be the moment she severed the ties that bound her fears to the past, or would it lead her to an unexpected revelation about herself? In that moment of stillness, she realized it wasn't just about him, this was about her, the choice she had to confront, a pivotal moment in her rebuilding process. The air crackled with a profound energy, the clarity of her path just one acknowledgement away. Would she truly have the courage to confront her past, or would she retreat once more? The looming uncertainty gripped her, urging her forward. Edna felt the palpable tension settle like mist around her as she stood before Jake, her gaze hanging on every word, the aroma of her carefully crafted meal still wafting through the air. In that moment, she embraced the significance of the confrontation. This wasn't just about navigating her past, it was the decisive act of owning her narrative. She had spent far too long overshadowed by self-doubt and bitter memories. "Jake," she said, her voice firm yet calm, "you've been a part of my life for a long time. Your opinion has shaped me, but today I am choosing to shape myself. I won't allow the past to dictate who I am anymore." He blinked, taken aback by her resolve. A flicker of vulnerability crossed his face as her words struck deep. She saw acknowledgement mirrored in his gaze. Perhaps he had expected her to falter under his presence. Instead, Edna stood tall, the weight of her past no longer crushing but grounding her in newfound confidence. As the quiet simmered, she pressed on. "Your review may have hurt, but it ignited something within me that I didn't know existed. I embraced my journey, my story. Today, I am sharing a piece of that, not just the food I create but the essence of who I've chosen to become." The warmth from her gaze surged, resonating with encouragement and belief in her effort. Edna felt the strength of their support enveloping her, shielding her from the shadows that had haunted her for far too long. Jake took a hesitant step forward, the gravity of the moment weighing down his former bravado. "Edna, I didn't realize you didn't realize how your words mattered, or how much I'd allow them to control me," she interjected, sharp yet not vengeful. "I've learned that I need to nurture my own voice. I will build my legacy beyond your critique." There it was, a moment of empowerment. Edna was finally confronting not just Jake but the doubts within her that had echoed his words. The reality of being unapologetically herself soared as she laid bare the layers of her transformation. "I want you to see me for who I am today," she continued, steadying her breath. "Not through the lens of those outdated judgments. I'm building something new here, my diner, my legacy, my future." Moved, her guests erupted into a chorus of affirmations. Anna chimed in, "This meal is a reflection of you, Edna. It's honest, raw, and beautiful just like you." Jake absorbed their earnestness, the truth of Edna's words wrapping around him like the very warmth she infused into her cooking. For the first time, he wasn't in control of the narrative, she was. "Maybe I didn't understand your journey," he admitted, a note of sincerity lacing his voice that hadn't been there before. "But it's clear you've transformed it into something powerful. That is not easy to do." Edna flicked her gaze, momentarily swallowed by the enormity of the situation. She had addressed her past with undeniable strength, and in doing so, recognized her capacity to overcome. Each ingredient in her dishes was a testament to the complex flavors of her life, pain intermingled with joy, defeat rising alongside triumph. "Thank you," she replied, letting his acknowledgement wash over her, "but it's time for both of us to move forward and define our paths separately. The past has shaped me, but it will not define me anymore." As the evening drew on, Edna returned to her kitchen, a space that felt like an extension of her soul, transformed by years of struggle and healing. Every dish she had prepared symbolized a piece of her rebirth, woven together with strength and the wisdom she had gained. The guests savored the dessert, rich with complexity much like her own journey. Conversations flourished, laughter echoed, and Edna reveled in the feeling of belonging. No longer was she shrouded in the fear of judgment. The diner was not just a host of meals but a sanctuary of progress, a platform from which she could launch her story into the community. As the evening came to a close, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. No longer did the shadows of betrayal hold her back. She had transformed her pain into an artistic expression and emerged with renewed clarity. In that moment, Edna truly defined her place in Maplewood's landscape, not just as a diner owner but as a voice of resilience, a woman keenly aware of her identity and proud of her journey. "Celebrate this moment," she thought, breathing in the sweet aroma of success mingling with the savory scents of her culinary creations. "This is just the beginning." With purpose in her heart, Edna began to envision her future, a future where her diner thrived as a centerpiece of community, culture, and courageous transformations. Now, more than ever, she understood that her experiences, both colorful and chaotic, would nourish not just her creations but the souls of everyone who wandered into her diner. Embrace your own journey today, just as Edna has. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories like this one. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it makes a difference, trust me. Comment below your reactions and theories about this conclusion. You need to share what you think. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel.